Gentlemen, we got to talk about this Kansas team. They went into Hilton Coliseum tonight. They beat the Cyclones 70-61 without Ochai Agbaji, without Sean Miller's guy, Remy Martin. And they did it coming off of an absolute beatdown at the hands of Kentucky in Fall Allen Fieldhouse on Saturday afternoon. So, Sean, I'm going to hit you on this one first. How impressed are you with Kansas after this win?
Well, they did some of the hardest things that you can do in college basketball. If you think about it, they had a marquee matchup with Kentucky over the weekend, Rob. And if you judge them by how they played on Saturday, I don't know if any of us have ever seen Kansas get beat that handedly from start to finish in Fall Allen Fieldhouse, especially with how well they've played this year. And that's a lot due to how good Kentucky is as well. But to put that loss behind you, the home loss, quickly fast forward with only a couple days in between, travel to Ames, Iowa, which I've been at Ames, Iowa, and it's one of the more difficult places to play at in college basketball. And then on top of it, you don't have your leading scorer and Remy Martin, a key player. You know, how are you going to be able to, with all those factors weighing against you, Rob, leave that game with a win? And that's what they did. And winning conference games on the road is one of the hardest things to do. Beating a team like Iowa State, who's had a tremendous season. And then think about what we just described. I think you have to give a lot of credit to Coach Self and his staff and the players that played in that game. McCormick, I think, had a very big night, but that's what great programs do, not just a good team or a team that's having a good season, but those teams that are a function of something that's bigger than just one season, you know, like a long-standing program like Kansas. That's, I think, a real trademark of what makes them great. Tonight's performance.
So what is the most difficult part about not having your star player like that, Arch? Is it preparing for the next game? Is it not knowing whether or not that guy is going to be available? Is it a curveball for the team that you're going up against if they don't know what you're going to do if you don't have that great player? I mean, Ochai Agbaji, he's going to be a guy in the mix for National Player of the Year this season.
Yeah, you know, they depend on him for over 20 a game. And when it's really, really important possessions, you know, they're calling his number. They're very comfortable going to him at this point in time. So, you know, I think not a very quick turnaround to practice a ton after you play a late night Saturday game in Lawrence. You have a quick turnaround to go to Ames. You know, you're going to rely on pretty much what you do, and you're going to have to go to a couple other guys and hopefully they deliver. And tonight, David McCormick got 14 and 14. Their big guy showed up, so they were able to play through him a little bit. And then, you know, they shoot 56% from the floor, and they go plus 11 on the glass. You know, they did it as a team. And sometimes you may not be able to get away with having Agbaji out for long periods of time. If he was out, say, 2, 3, 4 games, that catches up to you. But on a one-game deal, the adrenaline, you have some different guys step up. You'd be surprised how much that team is successful when they don't have that guy right away. Now, if it was a long-term thing, that's when you really, the other team's going to start to pick on some of your weaknesses and some of the things that you don't have that aren't as good. But tonight they have other good players. They stepped up, and, you know, to be able to win on the road, I thought that Harris was terrific tonight. You know, he had 8 assists, and he also had 4 steals. He got a couple breakaways. They got those guys out in front. So Kansas did it as a team. And a very important win for them as they're trying to win the Big 12. And
Rob, we talked about this in previous shows. You know, Kansas winning the Big 12 consecutive years. It's one of the most iconic things you can talk about in college basketball history. Winning a conference as good as the Big 12 for 12 consecutive years. And, you know, again, when you talk about, you know, tonight was a function not only of this year's team, but of really the last 15 years, 20 years at Kansas, and obviously Coach Self's tenure. But they expect to win. They have confidence. And, you know, the other thing we've talked a lot about with Kansas, some of these teams, as you look at February, when more familiarity comes into it, you're playing road games, you have this injury thing that happens, you have to play through foul trouble, your offense goes. You know, you watch time and time again, teams go through these scoring droughts and they can't score. Kansas remains, even after tonight, a top 5 offensive team in the country. And, when you have that confidence that you can score the ball and be as efficient as they have been from start to finish, it helps them in a game like tonight.
Yeah, we got to talk about the big fella, though, guys. On your podcast, the Next Play podcast, we did a good 30-minute segment about how impactful what having that kind of presence in the post will bring you, right? It was about Agbaji and about having that big guy inside and the way that Bill Self kind of schemes those seals for him, right? So with the way that he played tonight, he was 7 for 7 from the floor, 14 and 14. That's not an easy thing to do, Sean. So when you have him there, when the big fella, Dave McCormick, and he's playing like this, what does it do to the rest of that Kansas offense?
Well, tonight they really needed him, Rob. And again, a sign of a great team is that when something goes wrong, tonight you had multiple players, including your best player, not available for the game. Somebody else has to be able to step up. And, tonight McCormick, he delivered, but the way Kansas plays, it puts him in a good position to deliver. Like you said, we've talked about this. As much as you see 3-point shooting and defense to offense and the spacing of constant hard drives and, drive to pass, which Kansas does a great job of, they still like game in, game out. Some games he brings it more than others, but they really never forget trying to get him the ball. And Arch, I know Arch is probably above and beyond, Rob. He's Alabama's biggest fan, but he's also Oscar at Kentucky's biggest fan.
I'll agree with
tell
that
you,
one.
a big thing when you watch the Kentucky-Kansas game is Oscar is great in ball screen coverage. He's rebound and he's the elite. He's the number 1 rebounder in America. But when you watch Oscar play pick and roll defense, he's special. And I thought like him alone disrupted Kansas a little bit. Some of the roles and some of the things that they can get easy baskets to McCormick, Oscar, he himself kind of took that away. So,
I agree with that.
Yeah. And look back to Kansas for decades. When you played Kansas, you always had to worry about a big man, sometimes multiple big guys. I mean, the Morris twins, we played them, Arch was with me at Arizona, and they had those 2 guys in there and Jeff Withey, who transferred in. And it was the way they played inside. Well, this year and really in previous years, they're a little bit more fluent, a little bit more balanced, maybe even more perimeter. But I still think that they have the know-how and the ability to get him the ball. And that will be big for them as they try to win their conference.
Yeah, Arch, I also thought it was important that DeJuan Harris came out and had this kind of a game.
38 minutes.
38 minutes, 14 points, 8 assists, 4 steals. He's always been really good defensively, but it's the playmaking, right? Like my biggest concern is that you have a whole bunch of guys on this Kansas roster that can finish off a play, whether it's Ochai breaking down a closeout or catching a lob or hitting a 3, Christian Brown doing the same things, David McCormick on the post-ups. You need, at least in my mind, that one guy that can make something happen if you're going up against a set defense, if you can't get something out of your stuff. And it feels like DeJuan kind of showed that a little bit tonight. I guess a really good defensive team too.
Yeah, he's sort of become their guy. For him to play 38 minutes, I think kind of shows their trust in him. And he clearly has been given the ball because he runs the offense and runs their system the way I think that they want him to run. But I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's interesting to see Kansas. They had Remy Martin out tonight. They also had Agbaji, but they got 17 minutes from Coleman Lands, and they got 23 minutes from Yusefu. Mm-hmm. Those 2 guys didn't even, I don't think, checked in very much against Kentucky. So he went into his bench, and he basically got 40 minutes from 2 guys who hadn't been playing. And Yusefu, he gets 4 assists. And Coleman Lands hits 2 threes. That's kind of how you do it when things aren't going well. And, he plugs those guys in there and they came in there. It's just going to make Kansas that much better to have those guys playing like that. But point guard play in particular, when you watch Kansas over the years, I mean, whether it's Frank Mason or a couple of those other guys, I mean, when they have a great point guard, they're tough to deal with, like everybody, really.